Today on Inside Utah Politics, we are hours away from a Utah court's redistricting decision, what the party behind the lawsuit is expecting, and where the fight over our congressional lines will go next. Plus, Democrats turned up big on election night, how party leadership is reacting in an exclusive interview with a DNC vice chair. And marking the end of an era in Congress, legislative leaders react to the news that Nancy Pelosi will not seek re-election.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I am Lindsay. Let's go inside Utah politics. We begin our program today with a Utah judge who is just hours away from issuing a major ruling in the legal battle over our state's congressional lines. That ruling can't come a moment too soon, as the Lieutenant Governor's office is under deadline to certify which map we're going to use in the 2026 midterm elections. So joining us today with some firsthand perspective is Catherine Bealey. She's the president of the League of Women Voters of Utah. This is the group suing the legislature in this case. Catherine, welcome to Inside Utah Politics.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so take me back to where this lawsuit all began. I mean, I think it was 2022, is that right?
Yes,
What prompted the decision to sue over the legislature after a compromise bill that really started this?
Well, I will say that it wasn't us who compromised. It was Better Boundaries. We are the voters of Utah. We are the League of Women Voters and Mormon Women for Ethical Government. When we saw that compromise, we were hoping that it would work, that the legislature would understand what a compromise is. Instead, what they did is they took everything that an independent commission could do and threw it out the window. At that point, we said, well, we need to sue. We need to get back to what Proposition 4 really means.
So Proposition 4 is our anti-gerrymandering law. It basically says you can't favor or disfavor one political party. You've got to prioritize city splits, try to minimize those, county splits, follow all the federal laws around redistricting, all of that. Now this is in a court battle. You and I have sat together in these court hearings over the last week.
So much fun.
Yeah. What do you make of the arguments thus far that your lawyers have made and that the legislature's lawyers have made?
Well, of course, I think our attorneys have been fabulous, and we've got great experts who've been on the bench talking about what is right and what isn't. I think all of the arguments on both sides have been made. The judge asked some very good questions, so we are just waiting to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, so this court hearing this week was really over this 3-test law that was just passed by the legislature. They codified 3 specific tests, including one called the partisan bias test that will determine this thing called partisan symmetry, which is another word for partisan favoritism, right? How you determine that. After you draw the maps, you go back and test them for this partisan symmetry to make sure we didn't unduly favor one party. Does the legislature not have a right to codify those tests? That is how the legislature speaks. They make laws.
So the legislature has a right to determine several different tools to create a map. But those tools have to comport with Proposition 4.
And how do the tests not?
The problem with SB 1011 is that it is very partisan, and it puts in stone what the legislature can do and will do in the future. What Proposition 4 says is that we should be using tools that are the very best available. This may be the best for next year or for 10 years from now. It is not the best now. It is obviously very partisan and ensures that the Republicans will be in charge for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's certainly the argument from the plaintiffs from your side here, but the legislature is saying, how are we supposed to know how to judge partisan symmetry? We have to pick some tests, and because the judge said there was non-specific criteria here, we're allowed to do that.
And there are a lot of tests out there, so they can choose from a number of them. I believe it was Senator Weiler who said just recently that there are a lot of tests out there that you can choose from. So if he believes there are, why doesn't the rest of the legislature? There are not just 3 tests to make partisan symmetry make sense. I'm not a statistician, so I can't go into the details of it. Our experts said that this was ridiculously partisan. I believe them.
So let's show for a second your maps, and then what the judge is weighing right now is two of your maps versus Map C that the legislature created. She's trying to determine whether Map C followed Prop 4 or not, right? These are the arguments from your side that it did not follow Prop 4. The legislature obviously says otherwise. As we're looking at your maps, why do you believe that your maps are right for Utah, better from Utah? Because the criticism is that your maps just want a Democratic in Congress when maybe that's not the reality of Utah's politics.
No, we have no interest in making this either Democratic or Republican. We believe in fair maps. Period. That is what we're looking at. The map C that the legislature proposed was done. I don't know exactly what tools they used.
Dave's redistricting app.
Yes. And I will say that the legislature previously has thrown out Dave's redistricting maps over and over again. We had a young man, Stuart Hepworth, who proposed, I think, dozens, maybe more than that, maps that were all done with Dave's redistricting. And the legislature said, no, that is done with partisan information. Well, if his maps don't apply, then why should the legislature's map?
Well, the defense there from the legislature was that the composite of that election data that was on the screen when he was drawing those maps was from 2020 to 2012, so he says it wouldn't have helped him anyways.
But they were basing it on Dave's redistricting, and that is what Map C was made with.
Okay, so let's talk about Map C for a second. All of the analysis that I have seen over Map C is that there are one, at least potentially two competitive districts if Map C is to move forward. I mean, some Republicans are saying, hey, Democrats, just take this map. It's as close as you're going to get to something to have a Democrat in Utah. Why sue again? Why sue over this again?
Well, I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am unaffiliated. And we at the League are fiercely nonpartisan. We don't look at this map as it's going to give us a Democratic district or a Republican district. It's not up to me. It is up to the judge to determine whether Map C goes forward. I found it a little ironic that then immediately the legislature wanted to get rid of Map C once they,
Well, it wasn't the legislature, it was the Republican Party.
The Republican Party.
Who says they were acting independently of the legislature.
I'm sure they were. But at any rate, they did try to get rid of Map C. I will say that Map C isn't terrible. It is partisan, but if the judge says okay with Map C, we believe in the courts. We believe in the court system. We will go with whatever she says. We are hopeful that she will take one of our two maps. Both of them are done totally nonpartisan. None of them would ensure a Democratic takeover.
Does the judge have a right to pick a map here when the Constitution says the legislature shall divide the districts? Well,
we're not taking away the legislature's responsibility. All we're doing is saying this is a relief. The judge will go into relief mode and say, you did not do what Proposition 4 said, therefore I have to take this map or that map. It's not like she's choosing the map or that we're taking it away from the legislature. We expect the legislature to continue doing what it should be doing.
So Proposition 4 creates an independent redistricting commission. That is the same type of structure that they have in California. And we just saw elections this week that passed Proposition 50, which is trying to undo the commission's work to be able to create some more Democratic seats in response to Texas, creating some more Republican seats. What do you make of that?
Well, Lindsay, this is a difficult question for the League. We have remained neutral on Proposition 50 in California. We understand, and I think the public understands, that California did this only in reaction to what happened in Texas. And so I'm not sure what other options they have.
So you don't want a commission there, but you do here?
No. As the League of Women Voters, we believe in independent commissions. So we remained neutral in that particular instance. We're leaving it up to the California voters.
Okay, we will have to see how that all shakes out.
Exactly.
Catherine, there was some polling recently that talked about how only like a fourth of Utahns are even paying attention to redistricting. And I'm so frustrated by those numbers because you and I do a lot of work on this issue to have like people just be like, just tell me what map we're using and why. What is your message to viewers who...
Well, first of all, I thought it was a third rather than a fourth.
You may be
so
right. I may have my
yay.
numbers wrong. Yeah, you're right.
And I would say that I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged that a fourth or a third of the people know what's going on. This is a very difficult issue with all the algorithms that they talk about. And I will say that legislators try to make it sound even more difficult than it is. It is not difficult for the people of Utah. The people of Utah simply want fair maps. They know what a fair map is. They know what a community of interest is. It's not that difficult.
Catherine Bailey, the president of League of Women Voters of Utah. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much,
I really appreciate it. All right, still ahead here on Inside Utah Politics. Democrats turned up big on election night. Hear how Democrats are processing their wins and their plans to compete in Utah next year in an exclusive interview with DNC leadership. That's coming up next.
Watching Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Aerts.
Well, welcome back. National Democrats are celebrating a run of big wins on election night, from flipping the governor's mansion in Virginia to voters approving mid-cycle redistricting in California to favor Democratic candidates. Our political team got to sit down with the top brass at the DNC to talk about what this means for the party heading into the 2026 midterms. Our Jordan Tracy brings us an exclusive interview with DNC Vice Chair Malcolm Kenyatta.
All right, I am lucky to be joined here with State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, who's also the vice chair of the DNC, visiting Utah. Welcome to Utah.
Oh my gosh, I'm happy to be here. It's really outstanding. It's my first time in Utah, believe it or not.
Tuesday, folks in the national media are calling it the Dem sweep. I know Democrats like the term Dem sweep. Republicans are saying, hey, Democrat states, Democrat cities, elected Democrats are not surprised. So I just want to get your reaction. Are you taking a measured approach, or how do you feel about Tuesday?
No, this was a huge victory, a historic victory. And, you know, you can have people try to poo-poo these results, but I hope that folks would listen to what the American people are saying. In states like Virginia, which had a Republican, well, still has a Republican governor, New Jersey, a place that the president was able to dramatically shrink the Democratic margins, and a state where I think you have to go back 60 or 70 years to see any party that has held the governorship for 3 terms in a row being of the same party. And then in Georgia, where you had Democrats for the first time taking control of really critical statewide positions as relates to the Public Utilities Commission. So these are not Democratic states, and these victories were not made possible just by Democratic voters. These were independent voters, Republicans, people who were looking at their lives and saying, I can't afford my life. I can't afford to take care of my families. I'm getting emails from my healthcare company letting me know that my premiums are going to go up dramatically. I'm seeing a reduction in economic activity. I'm looking at the jobs numbers, which just today, CNBC was reporting are the worst levels of job losses that we've seen since 2003, and has surpassed what we even saw during the Great Recession. So the president promised people a lot of different things. There were a lot of people who were rightfully frustrated about the state of the economy, and he ran saying he was going to lower costs on day one. He was going to get us out of all these foreign wars. He was going to focus on Americans. And instead, what we've gotten is costs are higher than they've ever been, in large part driven by his erratic, corrupt tariff policies. We see that just today or yesterday, he announced that we might be going to war with Nigeria, as well as Venezuela. And I cannot, you know this coming from Pennsylvania, we're a huge agriculture state. I know that people don't think about that with Pennsylvania, but majority of our industry is in agriculture. And when you look at what the president has done as it relates to agriculture, not just Argentinian beef, but in his first term, the decisions that he made, which put our dairy farmers in a really tough spot, people have never gotten back some of those markets that they lost because of the tariff policies we saw in the first administration. So I say all that to make the point that Democrats in different states, completely different profiles, different neighbors that they were talking to, all talked about the three simple words that I think sum up what the Democratic Party has to be about. And it's how do we make life better for working people and working families? And that's what our candidates talked about.
Well, the vice president made an interesting point about Tuesday's results, saying, you know, in an election, a municipal election, Democrats have always had turnout for off-year elections, things like that. So that's why he's saying maybe municipal election isn't a way to say, hey, 2026 is going to bring the Democratic wave. I mean, it is a municipal election. Not everybody turns out. You know, can you really predict 2026 based off of mayoral races, some governor races in the country?
Well, here's the good news. We don't spend any time at the new DNC trying to predict anything. We spend every day just trying to work for the American people. I think the Democratic Party, and I think all of us recognize after November, we have to do some things differently. And a part of what we had to do differently is to keep the main thing, the way the Super Bowl award-winning MVP, Jalen Hurts, likes to say to the team. And the main thing for us is very simple. Can people look their kids in the eyes and know that they're not lying, that things are going to be a little bit better than they were for them? Can people be in a position where they feel like they can retire with some dignity in decency? Do folks feel like their job is putting them in a position where they can take care of the needs that they have? And on every single one of those metrics, the American people are saying loudly that they do not feel like that is possible in the way that they want it to be possible. And it's why I sort of alluded to before the corruption with the tariffs. What's been so frustrating for us to watch, for me to watch in particular, is that these tariffs have not only stymied economic growth, but they have been instituted in a way that has made money for Donald Trump and his supporters, but has cost the American people. One of the most egregious examples was the president saying that he was going to do tariffs toward China, I guess it's 2 or 3 weeks ago. And somebody who had insider information on this shorted Bitcoin to the tune of $187 million that they made because of this insider information. But for the average person, people are seeing everything from the cost of car seats to the price of eggs to the price of building materials if they're trying to build or buy a new home. All those things are going through the roof. But the folks who are close to the president, who are friends with him, who have access to this information about how he's going to turn the tariffs up or down, they get to reap huge financial windfalls. I don't think that's right and that's fair. And frankly, it's not a partisan thing for us to say you should be able to afford your life. You should be able to feed your family. You should be able to afford health care. And, you know, I wished, I really do, that the president had kept his word on these things. But unfortunately, not only has he not made life better for the American people, in every single economic metric that you can look at, he's made things worse. And I think that's what the American people were saying on Tuesday very loudly, that they want us focused, all of us, focused on how we're going to make their lives more affordable. And also, I think people are sick of the chaos and the corruption that has become commonplace.
Utah is in a redistricting process. You see it in California as well. Utah's more of a battle. We're going to court again and again and again on this map. But it's because there's a chance here for Democrats to make some seats potentially competitive in Utah. I know people heard that, fell off their chair and said there's no way that's going to happen. But there is a chance. We have potential candidates already lining up to compete here. At the DNC, do you guys ever look at the state of Utah and say, maybe we could do something here? Or is Utah a place that's like, we got to focus on New Jersey, Virginia, Georgia?
No, I would tell you, just last weekend, I was in Wyoming and I had somebody say, Malcolm, why are you in Wyoming? I said, because there are families in Wyoming whose lives we need to try to make better. You know, we're in a position where if you don't show up, you lose. And I think for me, the purpose of elections is to make people's lives better. It's the purpose. It's why we do all this. I mean, I'm not doing all this just because I want, somebody with my jersey on to win. I have football for that, okay? This is about what do we do materially to make people's lives better. And I think for the Democratic Party, one of our big mistakes is for election cycle after election cycle, we've done two things. A, we've acted as if the DNC only exists to announce a presidential nominee every 4 years. There are elections every year that we need to be investing in and focusing on. And you're seeing the DNC put our money where our mouth is. We used to spend about 8% of our budget on investments in state parties. That number is now 24% because we understand the significant impact of being able to talk to people year round, not just talk to people about, hey, vote for this candidate, but ask people, what are the things that you need and how can we have candidates and policies that respond to the needs that you have? The second thing is we're not just going to hunker down in 7 battleground states. Utah was one of the states that, even though Donald Trump won, moved the furthest away from him in the last election. And so I think we have to continue to have conversations with people about what Democrats actually believe, because Republicans really push out a message about what Democrats believe, and I listen to some of the things that they say, and I'm like, what planet are we on? Because I haven't said any of those things. These idea of these like radical ideas. I don't think it's radical that the wealthiest people in the world pay their fair share of taxes the way that police officers and teachers and nurses have to. I don't think it's radical that people can go to the doctor when they're sick or be able to afford a home in a neighborhood that's safe. These are the things that Democrats are fighting for, and I'm confident that if we organize everywhere, we can win anywhere, as Chair Ken Martin says all the time. But I also know that if we don't organize in places, we never have a chance to win.
That was a fascinating conversation. My thanks to our Jordan Tracy there for that. Just a short chunk there of our longer interview with DNC Vice Chair Kenyatta. To see the full conversation, you can find it on our free streaming News for Utah Plus app. You can download that for free on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire by scanning that QR code you see right there on your screen. All right, well, coming up still, one of the longest serving members of Congress calls it quits. Nancy Pelosi will not seek re-election. We have reaction from Washington when we come back. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing she is not seeking re-election next year. The longtime San Francisco lawmaker served as the first woman Speaker of the House in Washington. Now, Washington correspondent Maddie Beer-Temple reports on reaction from her colleagues on Capitol Hill.
I will not be seeking re-election to Congress.
In a video on X, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi thanked San Francisco for sending her to Congress, where she served for nearly 4 decades.
I've cherished the privilege of representing our magnificent city in the United States Congress.
On Capitol Hill, colleagues commended the 85-year-old Democratic lawmaker who made history as the first woman to be Speaker of the House.
Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi will go down in history as the greatest speaker of all time.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries praised Pelosi's legislative achievements. Among them, he listed the Affordable Care Act, the American Rescue Plan, and more.
It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to serve with her, work with her, be mentored by her.
Part of Pelosi's speakership aligned with President Trump's first term. He weighed in on her announcement Thursday.
I think she's an able woman. I'm glad she's retiring. I think she did the country a great service by retiring.
Meanwhile, Pelosi's fellow California Congressman Mark Takano called her
the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Takano says Pelosi's retirement will mark the end of an era, one that House Speaker Mike Johnson says comes at a pivotal time for the Democratic Party.
Even the famous San Francisco liberal is not far left enough for the neo-Marxists. We commend her for her services. We all do, everyone who serves in Congress, but there should be a lot written about that.
Ahead of the midterms, Pelosi faced a potential primary challenge from a former chief of staff to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a California state senator. In Washington, I'm Maddie Beer-Temple.
Well, that does it for today's Inside Utah Politics. Stay in touch with us on social media, won't you? You can find me on X, Threads, and Instagram, Lindsay on Air. You can also find Inside Utah Politics in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're looking for more national political coverage, check out our Political Power Ranker. This is our national political director and the head of Emerson College Polling, who look at who's up and who's down in the world of politics based on the data. We carry that for you on our free streaming app, News for Utah Plus. You can download that on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Well, thanks for joining us today. We will see you next week.